Welcome, everybody, back to the Nuggets of Gold podcasting YouTube channel. So for today's episode, me and Aiden are going to be discussing Dre Greenlaw versus Azeez Al-Shaair. Now, if you guys didn't know, Dre Greenlaw just came back to practice. I don't know if he's going to be playing this Sunday against the Jags, but he's going to be playing soon. So one of the big questions and big conversations I've seen is, do you move on from having Azeez start at the will linebacker spot, and does Dre just take that spot over? I think it's a very, very interesting question. I think while both players have proven to be, I would say, above average linebackers, I like both of them a lot, especially in terms of the value you got. Azeez is an undrafted guy. Dre Greenlaw is a fifth rounder. You have two players that are very, very solid linebackers, and they're going to be competing for this starting will linebacker spot. Now, the lucky thing for whoever doesn't end up being that starter, you're still going to see them on the field a lot. You're going to see them at the Sam linebacker spot. You're going to see them in anytime there's three linebackers, it's likely that it's going to be those three guys because of how good they've been. So, Aiden, who do you think should be the starting linebacker when Dre Greenlaw is fully healthy?
I think when Greenlaw is fully healthy, he should be the starter. I think you almost mix him in, and you almost do like a competition as Greenlaw comes back. Let him slowly take over a lot of those starting snaps. But like you said, it doesn't really matter. Like, they're both going to be on the field a lot. And I love that we're even having this discussion because it shows how deep this Niners linebacker room is and how if an injury were to happen to Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw again, like, you feel really good about the guys in that room. And with the way that the D-line played last week, they're going to be making a lot of unblocked and cutting through holes, and super exciting. But I would say Greenlaw once he's fully healthy, but I'd love to see kind of an integration and competition as he gets back to like a regular workload.
I think that makes a lot of sense just because you're also going to see him like he's recovering from, I think it's core muscle surgery. So having Azeez start, I think that this weekend we're going to see Azeez. I think there's a very likely chance that even if Dre Greenlaw is active, that Azeez at least like just has the nod, and they'll probably come out and like Kyle and John will probably come out and say, oh, Azeez is starting right now. Like there's going to be like a battle or competition. But right now, until Dre Greenlaw is fully healthy, fully back into, form in terms of practicing. Cause I think that's something that we kind of forget is like, if you're out for a month, 2 months, you have to get back into shape a little bit. Not that he's not doing anything, but you kind of got to get back up to speed. And really feel comfortable on the practice field again. So I think that'll probably take a couple weeks. I would say I will go with Dre, not necessarily even saying that he's better than Azeez. I think that they're very comparable players. Both of them are going to bring you a little bit different stuff. Dre Greenlaw is, I would say he's a better guy in pass coverage. Don't think he's a perfect pass coverage linebacker like Mr. Fred Warner, who is absolutely lights out. But you go and put him on a tight end. He's going to be able to hang a little bit better than Azeez does. He's a little bit quicker. Former safety. I know that gets brought up a lot with him. But the biggest thing for me is that sideline to sideline, I think Dre's a little bit better. And for the 49ers, I think the biggest thing they need out of that will linebacker spot is a guy that can be tremendous in the run game, because then that allows Fred to kind of be himself. Go out there, go put Fred on Hollywood Brown in man coverage. Like we've seen some of the ridiculous stuff that you can do with Fred. If you're in cover 2, you can have him play that deep, the deep zone, the deep drop in the linebacker zone. And like you're more comfortable like with people running seams. Like Fred can go up there and go make those plays. And you can kind of just have him put in different spots where he's more like it's more impactful for him to be involved a little bit more in the pass game, a little bit more in blitzes and stuff like that, where you can just go, all right, Dre, go make those sideline to sideline tackles. Because the thing about him is that he does not miss tackles. He really doesn't. Now Azeez has a ton of big play potential. I think a lot more than Dre Greenlaw, which is kind of funny because like the one game Greenlaw played this year, he had a pick 6. But I do feel like Azeez he definitely has a higher tackle for loss rate. He's in the backfield a little bit more, but I don't think he provides the same like insurance in the run game of like, yeah, he will not miss a tackle. And And Dre literally feels like he's always around the ball, always flying around. Not that Azeez isn't. Azeez is definitely flying around the ball, but he's just not quite as sure of a tackler. And he doesn't quite have that speed in terms of like sideline to sideline movement. He's a little bit more of a downhill player. So I think also though, like I'm not trying to take anything away from Azeez. I think he's been amazing this year. I think you look at a couple of these undrafted guys that the Niners have had. Azeez and Jeff Wilson are two guys where it was like they kind of just stuck around here for a while. Like don't really see it with him, at least in my opinion. I didn't really see it with him, and then boom, like they turn it on. You're like, oh, these guys have developed. They are very solid players. So I, tremendous respect for what Azeez has been able to do, especially as an undrafted player, is awesome stuff. But I think it's a good thing for the 49ers. You have three guys that you can be comfortable playing those linebacker spots. And if you have to move Azeez to a Sam spot where he's playing like 40% of the time, 35% of the time, that's okay. Like he's going to be in there fresh. He's still going to be making plays. You're still going to see him flying around. So if they even like decide to leave Azeez there and Greenlaw goes and plays more of that Sam role and plays like, I just think he's more suited for the will linebacker role. That's kind of why I would put him there. But I like both the guys. I think it's tremendous depth. But yeah, I don't know. That's why I'd probably take Dre. But anything else you want to add in?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, talking about differing strengths. I think that they could be used situationally. Greenlaw and obvious passing downs for the speed. Maybe if it's a short yardage play, put in Azeez. I think it's good that they're not the exact same player. And more rest will make them more successful also. We saw that with the Niners D-line rotation in 2019 when they were super successful. So a very good problem for the 49ers to have, and excited to see how they, I guess, attack it and who ends up starting. Probably not this week. A good gauge is probably it's Jaguars this week. Who is next week, Matt?
I want to say it's the
Seattle
Seahawks or the Vikings.
I
It's
think
those two the
yeah,
next 2 weeks. I don't
yeah.
know which
I
order.
think it's Jaguars, Seattle, Vikings. I think so. That third game is the game that we're going to be looking at to see who is starting in that spot, and it very well could be Azeez, but I think both of us are going to take Dre.
I like that you bring up that you could use them in like situationally. Also, I think it's also like very matchup dependent. If you have a team that's going to try to run the ball a lot and you need a guy to be like sideline to sideline player where they're like almost like a team like the Niners where it's going to be a lot of like outside zone stuff, I think Dre's a little bit better at that. But if you have a team with maybe, for instance, like the Titans, maybe Azeez comes in and starts that game. I think that it's a little bit different of a look, but I think that would be maybe a potential better matchup where if you're playing a super fast runner that you need to wrap up and make tackles and Dalvin Cook and the Vikings, then you probably want to see Dre out there a little bit more. So I think that not like a linebacker by committee, but like utilizing your players in good matchups, I think is the best way to go in this. And I expect them to do that. I think that's something that well, sometimes the 49ers are good at utilizing their players in the right spots. We've definitely seen some questionable things, I think, on the defensive side of the ball this year in terms of that. But I don't know. I think like linebacker-wise, I'm going to definitely trust D'Amico with that. He knows these guys better than anyone. He's developed all of them, especially both Dre Greenlaw and Azeez. So really excited to see how that plays out. Maybe we see them use more like three linebacker situations, which – it's kind of hard because it is dependent on the offensive personnel, but maybe they just go like, all right, like K1, like we're going to take you out a little bit more than we have in the past. Another person that you kind of wonder like what their role is going to look like is Hufanga. Maybe we see his role reduced a little bit, even if he's starting at strong safety where they give some different looks and they have three linebackers. I don't know exactly how that'll look out, but there's a lot of things they can do because they have a lot of depth and a lot of different styled players in these box safety linebacker roles in the middle of the field. So I think this makes the middle of their defense is really, really strong. I think that's going to be one of the strongest points here moving out. Hopefully they can continue to be pretty good against the run game. I think they've done a good job of that this year. Early on, you had some issues with the gaps and you had some defensive tackles struggling a little bit, but it seems like they've turned it around. Kicking Eric Armstead inside has been huge also. I think that's been a tremendous thing. DJ Jones, I thought, had a pretty solid night. Also, I don't know how much you saw this, Aiden, but Arden Key inside, kind of sweet as well. So yeah, that's pretty much I got. Anything else you want to add on the middle of the defense? I know it's mostly Greenlaw and Azeez, but anything you want to add on the the defensive tackles or anything like that?
I was super excited to see how the D line looked against the Rams. That's a good offensive line, and they dominated the line of scrimmage. Offensive line dominated the Rams' defensive line, and the Niners' defensive line dominated the offensive line. You're going to win football games when you own the trenches. Niners did that on Monday night. I'd love to see them do it every single week. But seems like this defensive line is starting to mold into form a little bit. I want to see Maurice Hurst out there. I think he could be a very interesting piece. He came off IR. I think he's probably going to play this week. Another guy to rotate in. And super excited to see the strength of the 49ers defense. We made that video a few months ago. Excited to see it really like start to take effect, and hopefully launch the Niners on a little win streak here.
Yeah, absolutely. That depth was definitely touched on a lot, and I think that I would say the defensive line has been underwhelming, especially for our expectations because they were very high, and it's kind of been like a one man wrecking crew in Nick Bosa. But you saw Arden Key flash a little bit more. You see Eric Armstead providing a lot more pressure inside, so that's super promising as well. But hopefully, Jordan Willis also. I think having him back is a big deal. Like they've had a lot of injuries on the defensive line. That's another thing. And they're still able to throw out pretty solid players there. So big stuff there. But I think this defense is definitely trending in the right direction. And hopefully we don't see as many lapses in the secondary in the second half of the year. Hopefully that's something they kind of shored up, figured out there. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. So let us know who you think should be starting. Give us the case for either one of the guys. And maybe if you have some sort of idea where they're going to mix it up where Azeez plays in these situations and Dre plays in these situations. Let us know what you think about that too, because really interesting stuff here. I'm very fascinated to see how it plays out. But thank you all for listening, and we'll be back talking to you guys tomorrow.